Nigeria is grappling with a seeming resurgence in terrorist attacks by Boko Haram and ISWAP insurgents in the northeast of the country and even in the northwest as well. In recent times, there have been several attacks targeted at both military formations now and civilian communities, resulting in several deaths and displacements. In the latest incident, suspected Boko Haram insurgents attacked several villages in Chibok community in Borno State, where over 200 schoolgirls were abducted back in 2014, setting homes and other public infrastructure ablaze. Just recently also, the insurgents killed at least 40 farmers and fishermen in the Dumba riverine community of Baga, also in Borno State. There had actually been a lull in Boko Haram attacks for several months now following military operations which seemingly decimated their capacity to carry out wanton attacks. But late last year, the insurgents resurfaced with sporadic attacks targeting remote communities and military formations. Now, here is what the Nigerian military has been saying about the resurgence in attacks.
It's clear that in recent times, there have been some form of resurgence in terror attacks, particularly in the northwest and in the northeast. These resurgent attacks have taken place. It started with Kareto last year in Borno State. Then we have had attacks on Sabongari, as well as Wajiroko, which are in Damboa local government area of Borno State. We've also recorded attacks in Chibok and Goza local government area of Borno State, as well as attacks in Budu, Ilela, Isa, and some locations in the northwest. I would say that the resurgence of these attacks by these terrorists are attributable to influx of foreign fighters that come in as reinforcement for these terrorists. These foreign fighters are from the Sahelian region, and this situation is made worse by local collaborators that form a support base for these terrorists. They serve as informants reporting on troops' movement to the terrorists. However, in spite of this situation, troops are profoundly conscious of their role and responsibility in ending insurgency and terrorism across our nation. Though we might record occasional tactical setbacks, our strategic objective remains unhindered, and it is to break the terrorist will to fight.
Well, no doubt at all that it appears the military might still have to do more to really break the will of Boko Haram and ISWAP and force them to completely lay down their arms and stop their campaign of terror. Let's discuss all of this some more. Joining me from Kaduna State is a security expert and program editor, Clean Foundation, Salahuddin Hashim. Also joining me from Abuja is Alan Manasseh, who is the Executive Director, Impact Trust International, an organization that provides support and advocacy against insurgency and has actually worked with Chibok community now for a very long time. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let me start with you, Mr. Manasseh. We've seen several attacks in Chibok lately now. Tell us about some of these attacks. How severe have they been? How many have we had so far? And just give us a clear picture of what exactly is happening in Chibok as we speak.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. The situation with us in Chibok is nothing different from what it has been since 2014. In fact, it's even getting on a higher frequency as compared to those days, because we had 7 attacks now since after the Christmas and New Year festivities, and that has never been so frequent as we are having now. But it's nothing new, nothing new from what we have been saying since 2009 down to 2014, and throughout our over a decade long of advocacy. This has been the same message, that these attacks escalate once it's harvest period. And when the rains started and the roads and the movements become difficult for these terrorists in the hinterlands, the attacks kind of subside. So it's normal, and that's why we have been saying that we are not denying the fact that there have been a lot of improvement in prosecuting this war on terror by our security agencies, but more need to be done beyond just converting local government headquarters to garrison towns, digging trenches, and then have pockets of military officers staying here and there, and then you have villages scattered out there without any form of protection. It's not going to give us the kind of results we want. We still have ungoverned spaces around all these local government where the insurgents can move 24 hours freely. So this is the situation with Chibok. Chibok is located in between the Sambisa general area on the east of Chibok and the Alagarno general area on the southwest of Chibok, you know. And again, I keep saying this since 2014, that how can we as a nation be forced by terrorists to close our federal roads, the one of the most important roads in Maiduguri that connects other part of the state, the most productive part of the state, that the southern part of Borno, the Maiduguri-Damboa road that leads to Biu, connecting Adamawa, Taraba, and Gombe. Having that road closed for over a decade and opening it periodically just to move, you know, maybe once or twice a week, and sometimes it can go for months without opening it, and then we are saying we are prosecuting war on terror. It's not right, and that is why these terrorists have a lot of comfort in some spaces where they can be equipped more, where they move around, you know, attack villages, take away their harvest, burn the rest, kill people, you know, and just pure act of terrorism. And usually this happens, and then they will disappear into their enclaves with little or no resistance from anybody.
Let me ask you this.
That's not right.
Sorry to interject now, but let me ask you. Let me understand. Don't we have a military presence in Chibok? Because I suppose after that incident of 2014, the military had to set up a base there. Is there no military presence in Chibok? And if there is, then why are we having these attacks?
That's the question I will want you guys in the media help to ask these Nigerian leaders and the leaders of the security agencies. Because if we have a whole battalion in Chibok and having, you know, all the 4 gates of Chibok locked down by 6 p.m. and then you have over 44 different villages scattered outside the trenches that enclave Chibok, and you have just maybe few of these villages with military presence. But if the terrorists repeatedly keep attacking villages as close as 3 kilometers, 7 kilometers, 6 kilometers away from Chibok, and they will still successfully attack, burn the villages, kill people, take away animals and farm produce, and still go freely, then there are a lot of questions that we need to ask. We are not saying there are no presence of military. Yes, we have military in Chibok, a whole battalion. We have a civil defense in Chibok. We have the DSS. We have the police in Chibok. But the attacks keep coming. Over 7 villages have been attacked since after Christmas. So what we are saying is more need to be done, and maybe there is need for complete change of strategy. or complete change of the people. Yesterday I spoke with a soldier in Chibok. Today I spoke with another soldier in Chibok that has been in Chibok for 4 years. They are even tired. Some of them want to even leave. They want to go back to their families. So what do we need to do? We need to end this terrorism, and it can be done. So in addition to what the police, the DSS, the armed forces are doing, we also have what Borno State government hosted to be the civilian JTF. They are also doing their best. But is this thing they are doing giving us the result within the required time that we need? No. We are not getting the results. Because one good example to measure whether we have made success in the prosecution of the war on terror or not is, why do we have federal roads locked that we can't use it even on a broad daylight? We don't have mountains on those roads like what we have in Afghanistan or any other place. These are flat lands, pure savanna area that can be cleared, and you have, up to as long as your eyes can see, very clean flat land. Why can't we provide security for over a decade for a whole country that have over 200 million citizens? And we have pockets of terrorists, holding us to ransom. People cannot go to farm. They cannot produce. This Damboa local government that is just 37 kilometers from Chibok is one of the agri-hub as far as Borno State is concerned. These are places that on single market day you have hundreds of trailer load of foods and animals leaving those markets. These places are abandoned. These places are let to be dictated by terrorists. Why are we allowing this country to fail? Because some people don't want to do the right thing. So there is serious need to question our leadership, not just the national leadership, but even the leadership of the security apparatus, right from the chief of defense staff, the chief of army staff, the DG, DSS, the police IG, and the rest. We need to question their capability.
What do you make of
in delivering this country from
what
terrorism?
you had the chief, the spokesperson of the Nigerian military say that, and which of course is a thinking of the military, that the reason for this resurgence in attacks is because of the influx of foreign fighters now who have come in to help these insurgents in Nigeria, like Boko Haram and ISWAP, and that they are getting local collaborators. What do you make of that?
Excuse me, my brother. Why do we keep having leaders that provide excuses for terrorists? Why? Why can't we know everybody in this country so that if somebody is stepping into Nigeria today, we will know them? Are we saying that over 200 million citizens cannot cover their border, cannot provide security for their border, for our borders?
But you also know that the border,
we cannot know everybody in this country?
The border in those areas are very, the border in those areas, the border is very porous.
It's doable. We have countries that have numerous entry points than Nigeria, and they were able to provide and secure their country. These borders can be protected, and I can categorically tell you that if we want to end terrorists in Nigeria, it is a doable thing. What are we doing with the local content? We have thousands of Nigerian graduates who are ready to join the armed forces. We have thousands of them. Today if you want 200 graduates in Chibok to join the Nigerian armed forces and to be trained to protect that territory, they are available. Why can't we do it? What happens to our use of technology? What happened to the intelligence sharing and the intelligence gathering that we've been calling on? Why are we providing excuses for these people? If we have real strategic leadership and we are very serious about pinning deliverables and attach timeline to smart approach in ending terrorism, it is doable. All we need is the intelligence gathering and the intelligence sharing need to be serious. Let's listen to people that are the end feelers of this unfortunate incident. But I will be here as a Chibok man, losing my business, losing my people every day, and I will be talking, and my word means nothing, but somebody sitting in Abuja that is receiving report from those areas will be someone that will be listening to, not me. Not me, that is a direct end feeler of this unfortunate terrorism. So we need to change this approach. If we are talking about informants, we are talking about local content, we have nobody stop us from developing strategy to deal with anybody that is colluding or collaborating with terrorism or with terrorists. This is what we want. Let's go all out, exterminate these terrorists, and have sanity for our country. Let people go back to their productivity. For 10 years, we have communities that are now ghost towns for over 10 years. We have people that have been IDPs and refugees in some communities in Cameroon for over 10 years. And what we keep doing is to provide excuses for terrorists about border porosity, about informant and colluding terrorists in sympathizers in our communities. No. We have more people that are tired with this terrorism, that want to end this terrorism and need a perfect and final solution to it than the few bad eggs that are colluding with terrorists.
I know
in
Chibok
such
has been
communities.
at the receiving end of this Boko Haram terror attacks for a very long time now. And there's no question at all that the local people there would have learnt a lot. I mean, you're from Chibok as well. But let me ask you this. What exactly are the people of Chibok doing to protect themselves as well, other than what the military does for them? Are there locals, probably initiatives that you have come up with in that area now to protect yourself and probably defend yourself?
Let me give you one example of the community of Chibok that is at the boundary of the Sambisa general area. That's Kautikeri village. Kautikeri has been attacked more than 55 times since the start of insurgency. And up to today, those people are still there. Do you know why? Because the locals there, the local vigilante teamed up and they said they don't have any place to go rather than to stay in Kautikeri. And Kautikeri is still sitting. Kautikeri is still, people are still living there. They still go to their farms, regardless of all the attacks. We've lost a lot of people. There have been a pocket of killing and burning here and there, but those people have been there fighting together with the security forces, and they have protected that town till today. So we have a lot of our vigilantes being supported by the state government and the local government, yes, and even the community. Kibaku Area Development Association, KADA, as an umbrella body, have been supportive of these guys, whatever they need financially, otherwise, in terms of logistics, we've been supportive, for our local vigilante groups, in addition to what the state government is doing with the civilian JTF. But these guys are not receiving what should be, of motivation.
Okay, let me just pause you there. Let me pause you there. I'll come back to you because initially we lost Salahuddin Hashim. He's now back with us. Mr. Hashim, thank you very much for coming back. Unfortunately, we lost you at some point. But let me ask you, you heard the spokesperson of the Nigerian military giving reasons for why we are having this resurgence. And the good thing is that, look, the Nigerian military has confirmed that there is some kind of resurgence in attacks. I mean, so which is something good that they realize that. But then saying that, it's partly because, or mainly because of this influx of foreign fighters and all of that. But other than the reason that the Nigerian military has given now, what do you also think could be part of the reason why we're having this resurgence in attacks? Mr. Manasseh has just talked about, that usually this thing happens during the harvest season. So it could be one of the reasons why we have this frequency in attacks and all of that. Could it also be, the strain in our relations the strain in our relations now with some of these Sahelian countries like Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, could that also be responsible for this resurgence we seem to be seeing?
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice to begin by saying that what we have seen typically is actually a supremacy battle between JAS and ISWAP. And then, of course, they needed to also show some force as to who is actually taking charge of the entire Lake Chad region. Before the resurgence became quite pronounced, there had been some level of confrontation, infighting between JAS and ISWAP. And then, of course, they needed to establish authority as to who really controls the underworld. And one of the ways to put that signature on the table is perhaps to begin to confront the state again as part of ways to stamp that particular authority. I agree to a large extent with Manasseh, who also made an attempt to say, look, it is as a result of a changing season. But beyond that, I think it is very important to highlight a number of reasons. Perhaps, again, if we have some time, we'll discuss that. One is because we also have a little bit of a problem with the multinational joint tax force, which also, as a result of what you have just mentioned, our confrontation with our neighbors hasn't really provided a stronger coordination that responded in the past to this particular onslaught. So that in itself is on the table and is a fundamental reason which we need to really evaluate again. Two is the challenge that borders around the poor implementation of our National Counterterrorism Strategy, and then, of course, the Terrorism Prevention Act. We have not implemented those elements and frameworks in any way. And I think, again, it is as a result of the challenges that borders on the state's capacity, the capacity of the states, the coercive powers has not really been very responsive, and I find that very worrisome. The third issue that I want to bring to the table, which perhaps will be third or fourth, is the issue that borders around redeployment of capabilities. You'll recall that very lately we have shifted quite a number of attention to the Northwest, and because of the official position of the state to say that we have degraded, and then, of course, moving assets and capabilities to the Northwest also has actually created some logistical challenges that also needs to now be reevaluated. The question remains, how therefore do we need to begin to close the ranks considering this particular situation that had also happening? Perhaps again, the number 5 issue or the number 5th issue is the issue that borders around the recruitment of the terrorism organizations. The terrorism groups have found very strong convenience in recruitment very lately. And perhaps it is one of the challenges of intelligence that we have also not paid a number of attention to. And I think the state also didn't do well in its own ability to put some infrastructure for prevention in place. And that is because our consistent focus outside some of the recommendations we have given in the past to say, look, we need to move on from kinetic response. And recall that in the 2025 budget proposal, there are over approximately 5 trillion that is going into defense and security. And what that tells you is the paradox of plenty. The more money you put in a particular sector, the larger the scale of activities that will go on in that particular region. The question remains, one, what is the judicious use of that resources in the past and now? 2, how much of that money is going into non-kinetic responses? I mean, we have rolled out tanks, we have done quite a lot of confrontation. The question is, we need to find some kind of non-kinetic responses that will reduce recruitment, which is some of the things that we have seen lately. And perhaps again, finally at this point, is to look at the issue that borders around strategic communication and logistic support to these terrorist groups. We need to find a way to revisit the strategies that we have actually outlined in the past. The logistics from these guys, the funding, how they will roll out their motorbikes, their gun trucks, there are still some logistic supplies that they get from some sources. And unfortunately, our financial intelligence has not also been able to pick how all of these support systems are happening. And this is quite unfortunate. And this is why I say, look, rolling out tanks on a periodic basis to fight an ideology is going to be very difficult if we don't find a way to look at the root causes and find ways ways to nip them in the bud, which is what I think we need to do at this point. So it is very important for the DHQ and the entire element that are responsible for these response organizations to sit again and reevaluate the situation. Perhaps finally, is the issue that borders around weak coordination. And to be very honest, it is very laughable to hear DHQ say it is about influx. When you have an agency of the state that you work with that has responsibility for border management. And remember, some years ago, both the Nigerian Immigration Service and Nigerian Customs Service came up with what they call the Border Patrol Corps, one of the strong support systems they felt could help contain and prevent some of the issues going on in that particular region. Unfortunately, again, we didn't see some strong response mechanism in that particular regard. And it is also the typical tradition of the state when it comes to that ability for them to act when it matters most. And I find that a little bit very worrisome. So it is very important for us to look at the entire logistics support system, find a way to cut down on them, find a way to reduce them. Sometimes ago in the entire base state, you couldn't even procure PMS diesel in a gallon. There was no way you could have an extra tank for your generator. I recall I had an office in both Borno and Yobe at that time. There was no way we could store any form of petrochemicals or anything that will help us to power generators. They were deliberate in that regard, and it actually worked. And I think again, it is very important to find a way to put those control measures in place as part of the effort to contain and prevent what is currently going on. At some point, our men became very relaxed, and we must acknowledge that fact. They thought the official position of completely degrading was going to help to manage situation at some point. But I think, again, this whole situation required that we raise the alert level and find a way to restructure and find a way to redouble our response effort. Perhaps we may get it right at some point.
All right, comprehensive response there. But let me come to you, Manasseh. Do you think, just as Salaudin said, that our military sort of became a bit relaxed when, we had this lull in attacks now, and went on with that narrative that the insurgents have been badly degraded?
Yeah, I agree with that assertion of them being relaxed, and not just being relaxed, but I think there is that element of seriousness too. Aside those that are purely using this insurgency as a business in the sense that you go into a community and somebody, the only person that have right to sell petrol, to sell recharge card, to sell most of the consumable must be a military person. And a good example I will give you, like Damboa local government, every day that they are opening that road for movement, if you find 100 truckload of foodstuff on that road, 100 of it will belong to some military officers, because that is what they use. They use the moment, gather foodstuff, load beans, load cows in trucks, and then do their business. And that economy, the economy aspect of this war is also affecting the prosecution of this war. As I said, there is no reason for a Nigeria as big as we are, the giant of Africa, with our military strength that have transcended decades of exploit, not just in Nigeria but across African countries, to allow themselves for ragtag army to come and push them into forcing them to close our federal road is unacceptable. And that is just not relaxing because they have pushed back the terrorism, but it's about they are not just ready to end this war on terror. That's one. Another point I would like to say is, why are we still giving excuses instead of building on the successes that have been achieved over the years? Why are we still providing excuses? So anybody that can give excuse as to why terrorism is still escalating in a particular area, that person should be moved to another place, maybe let him or her go and stay in an office, and then bring somebody that is ready to work, somebody that can understand this terrain, somebody that is ready to share intelligence and to act based on the report that are available in the community, because most of these attacks happen not because there were no prior reports or prior intelligence on them. Most of them happen even after reports are made, and even after the attack starts, the response mechanism are always very slow, because attack starts like 7 a.m. in the morning, and then by 12 somebody is coming to the scene of the incident. I think that is not right. And again, what happened to pursuing, overtaking, and then eliminating the terrorists? Most of them will come and attack in a broad daylight. We have the Air Force ready. If passenger flight can fly from Saudi Arabia to Nigeria in 4 hours, and then we have military base in Chibok, in Adamawa, we have the Air Force base in Maiduguri, that within 15 minutes they can reach anywhere in Borno State, and then you see attacks starting 1, 2, 3, 4 hours after, and you don't see anything on the skies to even respond to attacks. So what excuse can one provide for our Air Force in prosecuting this kind of insult fights?
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We've actually run out of time. But let me come to you, Salahuddin, and very quickly, because we're out of time, maybe in just a minute or so. How do you think we can end this insurgency completely?
One, I think we need to raise the financial intelligence capability to also look at how to cut logistic support. Two, we need to reactivate the multinational joint task force to be able to help us to coordinate responses across the Lake Chad region, because that is very fundamental. Three, strategic communication needs to be stronger, and we need to create some level of additional energy into it. Four is that the entire logistics, intelligence, and of course coordination amongst agencies need to be also redoubled at this point. Perhaps again, we need to redeploy additional platforms to that region. And finally, is that we need to invest more in non-kinetic efforts to reduce recruitment. Those are, for me, some of the solutions that we have.
And Mr. Manasseh, how do you think we can end this insurgency completely from your own experience?
Maybe we begin to go back and ask the lower ranking officers in our security agencies to tell us what they need to do to end this, and then forget about these big guys that are busy doing their business, and then give people that are ready to end this war to end it.
All right, I think we'll just have to leave it there. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. Salahuddin Hashim, who is, of course, the program editor of Clean Foundation. Thank you very much for your time. And Alan Manasseh, Executive Director, Impact Trust International, an organization, of course, that provides support advocacy against insurgency. Thanks a lot for coming on the program and sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate your time. Well, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go away. Opinions are free. Facts are sacred. But truth is universal. How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
When you go into public office, you must be ready to answer to the people.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world. A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.